Welcome to Universal Man, where we turn your flight into fight so that you can master yourself and conquer your goals. My name is Mark Kweppett, and I'm here to help you sharpen your masculine edge. And in today's video, I'm going to be talking about presence. And I don't know about you, but I'm always hearing about how important presence is. We just all need to be more present. And well, I've thought about this concept a pretty decent amount, hopefully enough to do a video on it. And I've come to the conclusion that the way that it is normally taught and talked about is it's relatively useless. I think that it can actually even be significantly counterproductive when you're adopting kind of this mainstream idea of just being present, being in the moment. And I want to try and offer you an alternative to focus on. Instead of just focusing on being present, I want you to do this instead. And if you want to hear what that is, well, you should probably watch this video because that's what it's going to be about. The reason I'm talking about this is because I've received a number of questions recently from people talking as if they're missing something. They're like, Mark, I know I got to be more present. I know I got to be more mindful, but I'm having trouble figuring out how this problem here, relates to being present. It's like, do I need to meditate differently? Like, how do I got to do this? It's like already assumed that the answer is presence, whatever this idea of presence is, and that they're just kind of missing it, and they got to figure out how to make that work. And I think that speaks to this sort of popular self-help movement that talks about this concept a lot. You know, you've got things like the power of now, and I'm always being told that if we could all just bring ourselves into this greater state of presence, then everything would be okay. And I'm not really sure that I buy that. Why? Why do I not buy this concept? Well, mainly because it's, on its surface, unless you figured out how to break the laws of physics and time and space and all this kind of stuff, you're always present. You can't not be present. How the heck can you not be present? Go ahead and try and not be present. You just can't do it, So, people are going to be saying, well, Mark, don't be stupid. When people are talking about presence, they're really talking about the presence of your attention. I'm like, okay, well, if we're talking about attention, why don't we talk about attention? Why are we using this nebulous concept of presence? When people generally and casually talk about presence, they're talking about where is your mind located? Where is your attention located? And okay, all right, if that's what we're going to talk about, I can get behind that concept because that is a very important concept. Where does your attention point? That's one of the main things that we can actually voluntarily control, seemingly, is we can point our awareness where we want it. And there may be value in pointing it in some places instead of other places. So here's where so this is kind of the premise, is like there are better places to point your attention than others. And if you can learn the proper strategy of moving your attention at the right times and places, then everything's going to be better somehow. And, I think I might actually agree with that. But it comes down to, all right, where do you point it, right? And this is partially where things start getting very confusing for a lot of people, because many of the people who are huge proponents of this concept of presence, are people who go very much down this line of thinking of non-duality. They are very much supporters of this non-dual view of the world, which is particularly, of Eastern origin, I would say. At least that's where it's been very developed. And if you don't know what non-dualism is, it's the idea that there is no distinction between this and that. That whenever we say that, I'm different from you, or this right hand is separate from my left hand, that we're creating that's illusory, that what we're doing is we're just drawing lines in reality with our mind, with our ego, as it were. And that if, doing that, it's a lie, it's not the way to, that's not the truth. And so that's a profoundly unhelpful concept when it comes down to where should I point my awareness, right? So people, they just start entering into this nebulous field of, I gotta be one, I gotta be like unified in something, I gotta be here, but like not to here, not here, like everywhere here. And it just starts getting kind of confusing. And there's some stuff to explore, and there's some value in exploring the non-dual stuff. And I've dove pretty heavily into that, especially when I was in college. But at the end of the day, what you kind of get going down that rabbit hole is that everything just is. That's all you can really say. You can't really say this is that, or this is, a specific way, because as soon as you start drawing those lines in reality, you're living in, the veil of Maya. You're living in illusion. And So the ultimate conclusion that you can get going down this route is that everything is. Like everything, there's something. It's like I if I can say I with a question mark, am I? And it just gets very confusing and there's nothing really there. And the best you can say is that there's something. And it's like, whoop-de-doo, you came to the most boring, unhelpful conclusion that there is. All right. And so what you have to get into then when you, if you're going to explore this route is like, okay, well, there is something. So what do I do about it? This is what matters to me as a person. This is what matters to me as a coach is like, what's the practical truth that we can extract from, where to point our attention? Like what is the proper way to move our attention through reality? If I'm allowed to be so egocentric as to draw some lines in our sensory experience, then there's a few different categories that we can kind of focus on. All right, we've got physical sensation, which would be the things that come in from your senses, your sense of sight, touch, smell, taste, that sort of thing. So we can bring our awareness to those sort of things. We can bring our awareness to emotional sensations, which would be the movements of our, endocrine system and whatnot inside of ourselves that we generally experience as emotions. And then we could bring our awareness to our rational faculties, like, calculations, like where we're adding, subtracting, comparing different sorts of things, measuring, that kind of stuff. And then you've got, imaginative operations where you can actually construct whole worlds inside of your head where you can imagine this scenario or that scenario or whatever. So, this is stuff we all know, but these are different places that you can place your attention. Now, where things start getting a little tricky, I think, is and confusing for people trying to figure out how to navigate their own awareness is that there are different camps that say you should focus on this over that. All right. So, for example, the yogic path might say you need to bring your awareness to your body. And that's the answer. You need to constantly bring your awareness back to your breath. You need to be present in your physical form. And, there's some value in that. Being present in your body holds a lot of information and can be very useful and that sort of thing. A liberal person might tell you that you need to be more in touch with your emotional faculty. That, and by being present with your emotions, you'll know that you need to pay more taxes so that you can feed the needy people. Now, on the other side, maybe you have someone who's more conservative, and they might say you need to be more present with your rational faculty and understand that personal responsibility instead of handouts is what makes a thriving society. And before you comment and say, say you're a liberal who can think rationally, or you're a conservative who can think, with your heart, I want you to use your imaginative faculty and imagine that I'm just painting a caricature to make a point. So there's all these different ways in which you can hold your awareness and which you can point it at. And the problem, I think, comes when you try to rely too heavily on putting your awareness in one place, okay? Because when you do that, it actually can become a form of escapism. And I know this because I've done this in pretty much every single way that it could be done. All right. So when I first got into all this mindfulness, presence stuff, Eastern kind of thing, is I got really into meditation. And the kind of meditation I first started doing was a kind of presence, like a physical presence meditation, where you just focus on your breath or you focus on relaxing every muscle in your body. Okay. And I started to use that whenever I would get emotionally distressed, or I'd get confused, or I'd get frustrated. And I got really good at disconnecting from those parts of my awareness and being present with my physical awareness. And that's all well and good. I mean, it's kind of neat. If you tune into your body enough, you can actually make that other stuff go away. But is that good? Is that really, truly useful if that's what you do sort of reflexively? For me, it wasn't. What ended up happening was I would just ignore shit because I was just feeling so calm while like my life was like going to crap around me. And so that wasn't useful. And then so I went the other direction and I dove into my emotions because I was taught that, maybe there's some deep processing that I needed to do. I just needed to feel everything better. I needed to get more in touch with my heart. And so I did. And so I felt it all. And, the more I gave an ear to my heart, the more it had to say. And turns out my heart's a whiny bitch, and it will always come up with something to complain about and hurt about and that sort of thing. And it wasn't very happy. And the more I listened to it and the more I made it kind of, my leader, the less happy I became because I acted more emotionally. I acted more impulsively. And, trying to follow my bliss through following my emotions really doesn't work out too well. So I would not recommend doing that too heavily either. And then, I've also gone the route of thinking things too much, being like, all right, so it's not the physical body, it's not the emotional body, it's about the rational mind, right? I'm going to be a stoic, I'm going to be focusing on reason and truth and all that kind of stuff, which would be great if I was a robot, but I'm not. I'm not a robot. Neither are you. You are a flesh and blood biological being with many parts that are beyond rational control. And if you just try to deal with everything on this 100% rational level, you're going to be kind of weird, and it's going to be counterproductive, and it's not going to be useful. And you can see people who do that. They overemphasize their own rationality to the point where they actually lose their ability to connect with people, because they've just become kind of like they've cut themselves off from the machinery inside their brain that is not the rational machinery that actually holds a lot of vitality and power and ability to connect and intuitive knowledge and that kind of stuff. So that's not the answer. And, I've spent a lot of time in the imaginative realm overemphasizing that. And that's just escapism of every sort. If you can live in these virtual worlds, you can live in the past, you can live in the future, you can live in a world that doesn't even exist. It's like, hello video games, hello porn, right? And these places obviously do not hold the solution either. So what do? How are you supposed to have your awareness navigate all these different options? Where is it supposed to be? Well, I think the solution is that you have to have a plan. You have to have a plan in life. And what I mean by that is it needs to be a holistic plan. And this plan, it needs to not only have a plan for what you do, okay, but it has to have a plan for how you behave, what you think, what you do, or what you believe, and all this kind of stuff. And so me personally, I highly recommend the kind of Judeo-Christian Western value system, and for the average dude, what that means is that you're going to be, you're going to try and have useful employment. You're going to try and be relatively healthy, improve yourself, find a significant other, raise a family, and do that kind of stuff, right? That's a great plan. Okay, and there's a whole set of values and virtues that you can look into that has been developed for thousands of years, and you can figure out what that means for you. Okay, so once you have this plan, then you can start figuring out what presence actually looks like. Presence then is like bring your awareness to the things that furthers you along that plan, right? And that's going to change moment to moment. And this sounds probably really obvious, and hopefully it does seem obvious when I explain it like this. And maybe I'm an idiot, but it took me a long time to realize this. I spent so much time like looking inward and looking for answers when it's really pretty simple. It's like have a plan for life and then bring your awareness to the things that further that plan. And that's what you do. But there's a problem with this, okay? There's a real problem with this, and this is actually kind of gets into a deeper philosophical sort of stuff, is that when you have a plan and you claim kind of like ownership of it, I'm going to try and make this happen. Well, that opens the door to internal conflict. Okay. Because you've created a duality. When you have a plan, you say this outcome is good or more desirable, and outcomes that aren't this direction, they're bad. They're undesirable. And as soon as you create that tension in your brain, what happens is it activates your moral circuitry. And your moral circuitry, not even necessarily in like the traditionally moral sense that most people I think are used to, but moral in the sense that it says one thing's good and another thing's bad, and that creates a tension. It creates an emotional tension where you're going to be afraid and resistant and feel aversion to the stuff you identify as bad, and it's going to create an attraction and a desire and an ache for the things that you describe as good. And as you have that tension, what's going to happen inside of your system is that you're going to start seeing that these different faculties I talked about, like your rationality, your emotionality, your body, your imaginative faculty, like these things will actually start bumping into each other, maybe even picking fights with each other. So like, the typical example would be the rational mind fighting with the emotional mind. You rationally understand that this thing is good, but then emotionally you feel that this thing is good. And then they smash into each other, and this creates suffering. And then, maybe what you imagined to do and what you imagined to be good doesn't actually match up with your physical reality of your body. Maybe you thought you could work this hard and do this much, but your physical body's like, nope, sorry, we need more rest. We need this, we need that, and we're not going to show up for you. Sorry. And so these things, they start getting into conflict, and this is where it gets tricky. It's like, when you have a plan and you see all this conflict coming up, trying to make that plan into a reality, it becomes very tempting to think that, okay, I don't need to be present with all this. I just need to, sit down and focus on my belly button for the next 40 years and, claim that'll bring me some kind of enlightenment. And, that's the life. That's going to be me really living when I'm just sitting there being present in my non-dual state, taking Instagram selfies of me doing yoga. I'm going to be killing it. So what do you do? What do you do about all of this conflict? Well, I think that this conflict, instead of viewing it as bad, I think it's actually a very good thing. This conflict between your different faculties that arises when you set a goal, okay? I see it as creative conflict. And being present in this is what I think is the key, okay? This is where I can fully get behind this presence conflict. You need to be right in the midst of like all this kind of smashing going on inside of yourself, where your rational faculty is smashing into your emotional faculty, which is smashing into your imagination, which is smashing into your perceptions of, the past, present, and future. And then, you have your body in the midst of it trying to navigate this physical world, and it's chaos. And it's beautiful and it's good. And this is where growth is, okay? This is what real presence is. Real presence is the battlefield that goes on inside of your own sensations and being, okay? This is where the magic happens, because when you can learn how to stay in this conflict, this is when you shift and you adapt and you grow and you transform, okay? This is the real good stuff. And it's challenging. It's so challenging because it's like this kind of presence is the exact opposite of what most people think of. I think most people think of kind of like, this kind of supreme gentle oneness where you just merge with the universe. And, you might be able to like hit that spot every once in a while. I remember I had one religious experience where I just merged with the universe, and I had that stereotypical feeling of everything is one, and that was pretty sweet. Like it was one of the coolest things I ever experienced, but I couldn't live like that. And I don't know how to get back there. And I know if I tried, I would just repeatedly fail, and it would just be a lost cause, and would kind of diminish the value of that actual experience. So what I'm left with is living in this crazy cognitive dissonance that is life. And so I think you need to learn how to embrace cognitive dissonance, this dissonance between, what one part of you thinks and another part of you thinks, and this part feels and this part aspires to. Learn how to hold it all together. And if you can develop your internal fortitude to let all these pieces smash into each other, well, eventually a conclusion arises from them. If you're willing to stay in it long enough, truth comes out, clarity comes out of it. And then guess what happens? Then you take that clarity and then you go and you smash it against reality by trying to do something, trying to make it happen. And that's going to cause more conflict. You're going to fail, you're going to struggle, you're going to hit walls, but then you're going to learn things, you're going to grow, and you're going to have breakthrough, and you're going to learn more stuff that allows you to, bring it into the battle and smush that all around and crash that together. And guess what? There's going to be more output, and there's going to be more understanding, and there's going to be more clarity. And this is the process of life, is learning how to just be present in that chaos, like sitting in that kind of eye of the hurricane, okay, and letting all of that stuff tear through you. And this takes a true spiritual warrior to embrace this kind of stuff. It's what you have to be most wary of is the people preaching ideological approaches to interacting with yourself and the world, okay? And by ideological, I mean one-sided. They say, no, the answer is through your body, or no, the answer is through your rationality, or no, the answer is through your emotion, or blah, 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 blah. The answer is through this fantasy world. No, you need all of it. You need all of it, because as soon as you try to simplify your life and simplify your human experience into one little filter, one little frame, well, guess what happens? You cut everything else off. It becomes a repressive act. It becomes an act of escape, an act of cowardice, because you're unwilling to face the truth of your experience, which is life's crazy. It's crazy. It's so hard. It's so difficult. It's so ridiculous in many ways, and challenging and frustrating that there's, it's just tough. And it's a hard pill to swallow, that like there is no easy path. There is no place, no mode of being where you can kind of just place your mind in it and you just got it figured out. And to claim otherwise, I think is just absurd. I think it's just crazy. And so what you have to do is you have to have the fortitude to kind of look at it all, hold it all, let it bounce around inside of you. And the archetypal sort of truth, the archetypal sort of hope that you can have. This is the kind of thing that runs through all major and good stories, is the idea that if you let all of that go to war, then goodness will win if you choose to let it. Okay. And that is the hope. That is the hope that, like, if you let all these pieces bounce around inside of yourself, you're not going to be, destroyed. Well, you might be destroyed. I mean, that's kind of the story, is that part of you will die, but the good part will rise. And it takes that choice. It takes that choice to be that brave and to hope beyond, what you know, that there is something good to be had for pursuing more truth rather than less truth, and allowing all these different pieces in and to talk to each other, to fight with each other, to agree and grow with each other. That is the path as far as I can see it. So, all right, I ended up ranting a little bit, but hopefully you found this at least interesting. Please let me know what you think below in the comments. I'm sure I didn't say everything perfectly. So if you got questions, please let me know. I would love to give you more feedback. But other than that, follow me on social media. Please like, please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Stay sharp.